Hey everybody, and welcome back to Meals with Melissa. Now I know it's been a couple of weeks, but I've been a little bit all over the country. So I have a little more complicated one today, but I'm gonna tell you it's worth it because let me tell you, I just have to find healthier ways to be able to eat chocolate because I love it. So today we're gonna make a low carb cream cheese chocolate cookie. It is awesome. And I know it's a little weird if you are coming from eating a lot of sugar, a lot of, probably processed foods, things that you're not necessarily making at home, or even if you are doing a lot of baking at home, these are going to taste a little weird at first. It takes a little bit of getting used to, especially when we're using sugar substitutes and different flours that are gluten-free. So be aware that if you're coming straight from sugar, it might taste a little funky to you, but trust me, you get used to it, especially when you are really committed to eating a healthier lifestyle and are trying to reach your health goals. So we're gonna start out, there's a couple of step process to this. Like I said, it's gonna take a little bit longer, but we got this. So we are making chocolate cream cheese low carb cookies. All right, so first thing we're gonna do, and I put it over my corner because I wanna use my stand mixer, and it is a little bit loud, so we'll do the best we can with it. But we're going to start with, I am making a half batch, apparently I can't speak this morning, a half batch, but I will put the full recipe down below so that you can actually make it, because honestly, you're gonna eat the whole thing, so just be aware. All right, so I'm gonna start with 4 ounces of cream cheese at room temperature and put that in my mixer. Oh, I gotta find my little mixer. I gotta find the paddle attachment, which I did not grab. Put that in there. I'm also going to add to that 1/4 cup of unsalted butter. Also at room temperature. It just mixes better, right? So these have been sitting out, so they're good to go. Also to that, I'm going to add a 1/2 cup of sugar substitute. Now, some people like Swerve. I use quite a bit of pure. Now, this is gonna be granulated option. There is a confectioner's option, which we're gonna use for our icing in a little bit here. But for today, I am using this stuff right here, and it seems to work well. Now, keep in mind that overuse of a lot of sugar substitutes, sugar alcohols, and those kind of things can actually cause quite a bit of digestive distress. So, one of the benefits of eating these, here and there, not eating the whole batch at one time, because honestly, it's just gonna give you a gut ache if you do. So to this, we're going to add a 1/2 cup of my pure sugar substitute. And I'm just gonna use my 4th cup measure just because that's what I have right here. So I'm gonna add 1/2 cup, and I'm also going to add 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla extract, okay? And I've got that right here as well. Love using vanilla. Love the smell. Yep. Okay. Let me grab my mixer attachment. I made my half batch last night so I can show you what they look like. And I believe that my mixer's still in the dishwasher. So let me grab that real quick. Voila. All right. So I'm going to mix those till they're just fully mixed. Now, like I said, my mixer is really kind of noisy. I don't know why. This was so much noisier than my small one that I used to have, but it still does the work. So we're just gonna go ahead and go with it. So I'm gonna mix that really well. Just wanna make sure that it's really incorporated well before I start adding the eggs so that it doesn't, not get mixed correctly. Perfect. I also like to have a spatula or a rubber scraper on hand just because I like to scrape down the sides to make sure that everything gets mixed in there. And especially once we hit the melted baking chocolate, you're going to need it, so you might as well have it available. Okay, so to that I'm going to add 1 egg at a time and make sure that it gets fully mixed before adding the next one. So turn that on. And I know it's a big bowl. It'll probably mix a little bit faster, a little bit better once if you're doing a full batch. But like I said, I like to do half batches, show you what it looks like, make some more for the family, and everybody in my family loves it, so just saying. Okay. Second egg going in. Okay, and while that's being mixed, I'm actually going to put the baking chocolate into the microwave. Now this is pure 100% baking chocolate, has no sugar in it. That does not mean that it is carb free, just keep that in mind. It does have some carbs in it, but it is completely sugar free. So I'm gonna throw this in at half power in my microwave. Now you can use a double boiler, I just don't want to. I'm gonna put it in my microwave at half power for 30 seconds at a time and mix it in between to make sure that it's not, it doesn't get burnt or scorched. So I'm gonna throw that in there, cook power half, 30 seconds. And meanwhile, I'm gonna mix the egg and I'm gonna grab a spoon so I can mix my chocolate a little bit. So there that goes. I'm gonna turn on the mixer. All right, I'm gonna grab a spoon, be right back. Okay. Now this time, because it's not really grabbing the butter and the cream cheese at the bottom, I am gonna go ahead and mix that. Meanwhile, I'm gonna pull that chocolate out and make sure that it is melting evenly. It's getting there. It'll take a second. Okay. So do it again. And cook time, 30 seconds. There we go. All right. And yes, I can multitask. I'm not great at it, but I can. All right. Scooping down the sides, make sure this gets all mixed up. As soon as that chocolate's done, I'm actually gonna fold it in right away because otherwise, as soon as it starts to cool off, it's going to thicken and I want it to actually mix. So kind of the reason I'm doing this at the same time, experience. All right. All right, so my mixture's ready. My chocolate is almost there. You can see that it's getting to be a melted consistency. And I'm just using, I actually can't remember what brand. I think it's Ghirardelli's baking squares. I just don't do cheap chocolate anymore. I don't eat it that often. I don't get it that often. So I tend to make sure that I'm eating and getting like the best. You know, I want some good quality chocolate when I'm doing it. So I'm gonna keep mixing that up. If you keep stirring, you know, the heat around it with the other chocolate should melt it just fine. I don't know if I'm gonna stick that back in. I just don't want to overcook it. I think it'll be okay there if I keep mixing it. Okay, so I'm gonna put this directly in right away. Like I said, otherwise it'll start to solidify. The other reason I have my rubber spatula ready to go. So I'm actually gonna just start putting that in right now, and I'm actually gonna turn it on in just a sec, as soon as I can get it in there. Like I said, it'll start to solidify as soon as it hits that the colder ingredients. So put that in, I'm gonna keep scraping. Got it in there. Try to get as much as I can. Don't want to waste it. Alright, now I'm going to let it mix until it is pretty well mixed, or at least evenly mixed. Alright. Now to that I'm going to start adding some more dry ingredients. As soon as this is mixed well. Today we're going to actually use coconut flour, which gives it a really different texture. So be aware that if you're used to regular, even if you're used to almond flour, it is really different texture. It tends to be more absorbable. So the texture of your cookie is going to be a little different than you normally would have. It's a little bit drier, but the frosting does help with that, with the icing. Okay, I'm going to scrape the sides. Want to make sure all that chocolate gets in there. Like I said, I'm a chocolate fan. It's got to be in it. Okay, and don't worry to this, we're going to add some cocoa powder, so it's going to be fine. But I do want to get as much in that as I possibly can. So another round of mixing. And to that, I'm going to add a half a cup of coconut flour. Again, remember that I'm actually doing a half batch. So when you do this, everything will be doubled, and the recipe I leave below will be double what you're seeing here. All right, so to that, I'm going to add my coconut flour. Now, if you don't know where to get it, try your local Whole Foods. I get it done, well, I actually had a bunch given to me by a friend a couple years ago, but I'm pretty sure Yolks carries it. Any of your local health food stores are going to carry something similar. They actually make a lot of different types of flours now, especially with the issue with a lot of people trying to go gluten-free. So that is an option. Okay, to that I'm also going to add 2 tablespoons of cocoa powder. Now I like to use the Ghirardelli's chocolate. Again, I want to use good stuff. This is premium baking Dutch process, which just makes it a little bit darker. Either way, still tastes good, right? Okay, so I'm gonna add 2 tablespoons of the cocoa powder to that. Basically, it's an 1/8 of a cup. You're just not gonna have an 1/8 of a cup, but it equals 2 tablespoons. So I'm gonna add that to my mix, along with 1 teaspoon of baking powder. We gotta have a leavening agent in this so that they rise just a little bit. Okay, so I'm gonna add that. Okay, so 1 teaspoon. I have a 1/2 teaspoon here, so I'm just gonna do it twice, no biggie. At my house, teaspoons disappear into things like the coconut oil and they just stay there. All right, so 1 teaspoon. We're almost done with the cookie part, I promise. Okay, I'm also going to add a 1/2 teaspoon of instant espresso coffee powder. Personally, I love it. It intensifies the chocolate flavor. If you're not a coffee drinker, don't really want to add that. That is not required, but I'm going to add that right now. Okay, along with an 1/8 teaspoon of salt. Again, these are half batches, so they're all gonna be half measurements. No biggie. And then I'm going to mix it and scoop it out onto my cookie tray. All right, and I forgot to preheat my oven, which normally I'm pretty good, but just forgot to do that. So I'm gonna turn that on just to 350. Okay, so I'm gonna run the mixer until it's about done. And then I'll take a second. While I pop that in the oven, I'll go ahead and make the icing. It's super simple. It's just gonna take a second. We're just gonna mix it really, really quick. You don't even need a mixer for it. It turns out really good. Personally, the icing is my favorite part. I had somebody say they didn't really like the texture, but yeah, I don't have a problem with that. So it's pretty darn good. So as soon as this is ready to go, and I am gonna take a second and scrape down the sides just to make sure that it gets fully incorporated and fully mixed. Don't want to get chunks of anything. You don't want chunks of butter, chunks of cream cheese. So I like to mix down the sides. I figure, you know, if the recipe calls for it, it needs to be in there. I don't want to miss it when I'm scooping it out. So 1 more round of mixing, and then we're going to go ahead and start scooping it. All right. Perfect, it's good to go. All right, so I'm gonna scoop that into, you know, just small. I think I made, with half a batch, I made about 10. They don't have to be super huge. Get all the good stuff off the side of, yeah, not gonna lie, this stuff is pretty darn good. All right. So I'm just gonna take my spoon that I was using before. I'm gonna scoop just little balls of the dough. It's gonna be kind of sticky, just be aware. Not a big deal. So like I said, it's gonna be a little bit different texture because of the ingredients that we're using. You know, you could probably add some Lily's sugar-free chocolate chips to it if you really wanted to. I thought about it, but you know, I'm always looking to make some different stuff. All right, so I'm gonna stick this in the oven for about 12 to 15 minutes. You don't wanna overbake them or they'll be super, super dry. So because I just started preheating my oven, I'll probably go the full 15 minutes. But while they're cooking, I'm gonna make the icing. So as soon as I get these on here, I'm gonna flatten them out just a little bit. I know this is a little bit longer recipe than I normally do. I do like to keep things really simple and uncomplicated because otherwise I just get overwhelmed and I don't do it. And I don't know about you, but most of us don't have a lot of time these days to be making crazy, you know, maybe at Thanksgiving or Christmas time, we like to make some really interesting, intricate recipes, but especially this time of year where there's way more fun stuff going on, I don't want to be in the kitchen all day. Plus it's hot, so who wants to do that? All right, got at least one more good. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, I'm gonna say 12. I'm gonna get 12 cookies out of this. So, you know, you can make some for your family, make some to share. Now, honestly, I think they taste pretty good cold. I don't know that I would eat these straight out of the oven. I think that they're a little too soft in texture at that point. They'd fall apart. I personally want them to be a little more solidified, so I would eat them after they've been sitting out or even in the fridge. It would be a good idea to store them in an airtight container in the refrigerator. Okay, I'm just kind of adding to the ones I've already made. I don't really need to make another one. There we go. Okay, so I'm gonna flatten them out because they're not gonna shrink or spread out as they cook. So I kind of want to have them already a little bit flatter. I also want them to cook thoroughly. Don't want the middles to not be cooked through. So, not that I've had that problem when I've made them before. All right, so they're flat. It's all sticking to my fingers. Maybe it means that I'm gonna have to lick my fingers. That's not a bad thing. Look at that. Okay, so I'm gonna stick that in there for about 12 to 15 minutes. And while that's going, I'm going to make the icing. All right, amazing. Okay, so got my timer. Let me wash my hands just real quick and we'll start the icing. All right. Now I don't really need my mixer for this part. I'm just gonna use the bowl that I made, that I originally melted the chocolate in because we're gonna do the same thing. All right, so recipe for the icing. It's almost like a ganache. So again, not gonna complain about that. So I'm gonna take 1 ounce. Now I found with the chocolate that I'm using, it's 2 squares is 1 ounce, super easy. And I like the fact that these aren't super thick, so they melt a little more evenly than some of the cheaper, like the baker's baking chocolate that you might get at the store. All right, to this I'm actually going to add, and you have to keep in mind that this is actually room temperature already, so it's gonna melt really, really fast, and you don't wanna make a huge mess. I'm gonna add 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter. Now these days I actually like to use no margarine. We don't use margarine in my house. Margarine is not good for you. And I like to use grass-fed if that's an option. Most of the time I get Kerrygold. Every once in a while if they don't have it, then I'll grab the other stuff. But I really want the best option because again, I don't eat a lot of baked goods. So when I make it, I want it to be amazing. Now, I'm also gonna cook this at half power, and I'm only gonna do it for 10 seconds at a time because otherwise the butter is gonna splatter. So, cook power, half, and we're only gonna go 10 seconds. Okay, and I'm gonna take time and I'm gonna go ahead and stir it in between. To that, and I'm gonna go ahead and have that ready, and it is actually over here. I'm going to use the pure confectioner. So again, it's more like powdered sugar. It's just a different consistency, so it's gonna mix a little bit better and you won't get that grainy effect from the granulated. Let me grab another spoon. Good thing I know my own way around my own kitchen, right? All right, so yeah, this is gonna take a little bit longer. I might put it in for 15 seconds this time. All right, cook power. There we go. All right. So I'm going to have 1/4 cup ready of the confectioner sugar. Because that way I can just start mixing as soon as it's ready to go. Again, because I'm making a half batch of the cookies, I'm only making a half batch of the frosting as well. Because I'd probably just eat it by the spoonful if I didn't. All right, butter is completely melted, chocolate's getting there. It needs at least 1 more round. And I'm gonna add the sugar right directly to the bowl because it's just easier than trying to scrape that all out. Yeah, it's gonna need at least 1 more round in the microwave. Like I said, you could use a double boiler. I just don't want to. I don't have time to put all that together. Okay, so 1 more round of that. To the mixture with the confectioner's sugar substitute, I'm also gonna add a ½ teaspoon of coconut oil and also a ½ teaspoon of the espresso, the instant espresso, and a pinch of salt. So I'm gonna add those fairly quickly because I wanna get them all ready to go. And then I'll show you what the cookie looks like when it's done. Perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. All right, so to that, I'm gonna add the 1/4 cup of confectioners. Keep mixing. Just kind of like you're making regular frosting, only just making it a little bit healthier alternative. One of my clients actually, to her oatmeal and some other things that she makes every day, adds a little bit of cocoa powder with liquid stevia to it to make it sweet and taste good. That I haven't actually tried yet, although I'm completely interested in that. It sounds amazing. Okay, while this is still warm, I want to make sure that I get the ½ teaspoon of coconut oil in, and I'm just going to kind of measure. I actually have a teaspoon in here, so I'm just going to measure about half. I'm going to eyeball it just a little bit because I want to do this fast. Okay, So I'm gonna keep mixing. I also need to add the instant coffee. So I'm gonna do the half a teaspoon. Oh, I need a 1/8 teaspoon. So actually we're gonna do half of a 4, super easy. Okay, and then I'm just gonna do a pinch of salt and keep mixing. I just don't want it to get too thick too fast. So the coconut oil, you can use MCT, but I'm using coconut oil because that's what we have in our household. That'll keep it from getting too thick too fast. Yeah, I'm tempted to eat that by the spoon. Okay, so I'm gonna show you what it looks like when you're all finished. I might add just a little more coconut oil to that just to keep it from getting, I just want it to be a little more liquidy than it is. You can see that there. Just making that just a little more able to spread once the cookies get out. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay, so here's what they're gonna look like when you're done. They turn out super good, and honestly, they taste good. So you can see it's got the little bit of the frosting on top, the icing. Looks like it tastes a little bit like ganache, but it's just a healthier version of it. So I will take a minute here as soon as I'm done, and hey, Billy. I will make sure that I get the recipe up there because I know you're going to want to try it. If you're a chocoholic like I am, you're probably going to try it today. So that way you can run out and get the ingredients for the recipe and make it later tonight for your family. Maybe have a game night. Happy Sunday, everybody. Have an incredible week. Definitely check back on Wednesday. I am back for a while. Again, I'm sorry that I kind of disappeared for a little bit. I was just doing a lot of traveling. Trying to make it work in there. Just a little tough to do when you've got that much crazy going on. I was actually in New York a week ago, so it was pretty exciting. Had the time of my life. But have an incredible week, guys, and until next weekend, that is Meals with Melissa. Have a good day.